Turn on your sound, turn on your sound, turn on your sound. Hi, everybody. Camille here from Paleo Kitchen TV. I am so excited to be with you today. And I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. I don't know why it took us so long to schedule, but my guest is my dear friend, Lyndsy Karrie. She is one of my local Maui Island friends, and we have gotten to know each other pretty well over the last, 6 months that I've been living on the island. And we spend a lot of time, most of our time, probably talking about the things she's going to share today. So, hello, Lyndsy. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Camille. I'm so excited to be here today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you. I have heard Lynsy's story Lyndsy and Dominic's story probably 10 times. And every time I hear it, I get goosebumps. I currently have goosebumps. And so I am just so excited for you all listening to be as inspired about the possibilities of healing your body with whole food as I am. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Lyndsy, and then we're going to dive right into her story. So Lyndsy Karrie is the founder of Real Yummy Food and a pioneer in the world of healing people with food. After being distressed by her son's severe autism diagnosis, she spent every waking hour researching and testing ways to help her son and family. What she found was astonishing. Now she shares her knowledge in easy-to-make, nutritious recipes while promoting clean eating in a non-toxic environment. Yes, that is what Lyndsy does. And she is a delicious chef. Every time I go and eat at her house, I think, why didn't I think of that? That was really simple and delicious. I need to make those things. And Craig's like, yes, you should make those things. She fed him steak last week, so he was happy. Yes. So Lyndsy, tell us what started you on this path. Tell us the story of Dominic.
Yes. So let's see. My son, Dominic, he's 8 years old now. But what first got me on this journey was realizing that he had autism when he was 3 years old. So it was something that he had, that there were signs since he was 4.5 months old. But I didn't, like, when he was first vaccinated, was when he changed, was when he was 4.5 months old. So, but what
were the first changes that you saw or that you noticed?
Well, being a new mom, I had him when I was only 20 years old. And so he was the first baby I'd ever held. So I didn't have any idea what to expect or any other experiences to compare him to. But the changes, before his vaccinations, he was fully alert. He lifted his head on day one. All of the nurses and all of my family and friends had always been telling me he was advanced, and he was super alert. In all his photos and videos, he was looking right at me, giggling, smiling, totally typical baby. And when he was 4.5 months old, the doctors convinced me to vaccinate him. I had already put off his day one vaccinations in the hospital. I hadn't done any research about vaccinations prior to having him, but in the hospital, they asked me, do you want to vaccinate him? They vaccinate with hepatitis B on day one. And I, having done no research, I refused it. And just because I didn't feel like injecting my child with a disease. No, thank you. Weakened, still, no, thank you. But with the persistence of going to the wellness baby visits, and the doctors were telling me, you need to get him vaccinated. Now we missed day one, and then 2 months, and then 4 months. So then they were like, well, now we need to catch him up. And really the only research I'd done, Camille, was asking my mom, should I do this? And she was like, well, you were vaccinated and you were fine. But I didn't realize that when I was a child that we got 8 vaccines at 5 years old, and now they're doing 36 before the age of 3. Starting on day 1. Anyways, they tell me they have to catch him up, and I agree to do it because they tell me that to not vaccinate would be to put my child in danger, right? And that this is the way to protect him. So they give him 6 different vaccines for up to 9 different diseases, including
all on the same day.
All on the same day. He went lethargic for 2 weeks and stopped looking at me.
Wow.
He just completely withdrew socially. And it's probably still a little bit challenging at that age, but you're his mother also, so you were able to see the signs, but you didn't. Hindsight, I'm sure, is always 20/20. Right. Well, and it's not the full part of the story either. So he goes lethargic and gets this super high degree fever after the vaccines, and then I call the doctor and they say to go give him Tylenol. So I run out and give him infant Tylenol, probably one of the worst things I could have done. Mm-hmm. Which was later recalled. They had more recalls that year in 2009 than any other company. Voted one of the most fun that year. Also, they own Johnson & Johnson, which is a whole nother story. But it's just, it's crazy, the things that we are told by these people who we, believe have our children's best interest. But giving Tylenol depletes the body's glutathione, which is how it depletes the heavy metals that are in the vaccines. I mean, one of the worst things I could have possibly done at that time. It wasn't until he was 4 years old that I met Dr. Green in Oregon, who heals these children for a living. He's seen over 3,000 children on the spectrum. He's famous in the world of healing autism. He ran blood, stool, saliva, urine tests and showed me my son had dangerous levels of heavy metals, abnormal gut flora, all these different food allergies, everything from eggs, beef, milk, broccoli. I mean,
and what was he eating? What was he eating at this? So this was at 4 years old. So from 4 months to 4 years, you were just trying to survive.
The story at 3 years old, he began having severe meltdowns. And that's when we realized he had autism. He lost all his eye contact. And I think, honestly, Camille, the signs were there, but I didn't want to see them. You never want to think something's wrong with your child. I didn't have another child to compare him to. And then
you didn't have much experience with any other children.
No, and at 4.5 months old, when he went lethargic for 2 weeks and I give him Tylenol, of course I'm like, worried. But then when he got his energy back, I thought, okay, all is well. Even though he wasn't, looking at me as much, I just thought he was curious about the world. As parents, I think we often just make excuses for these things. And I was like, oh, he's really independent, or, he's really smart. And, he was always the smartest kid in the room, and I'd take him to doctors and say, oh, he's really picky eater, or I'd bring up concerns I have, and they'd say, look at him, he looks totally healthy. And, they'd be like, oh, all children are picky eaters. And so when I found out this was an epidemic, and I was like, wow, I was raising these red flags to my doctors, and nobody was telling me, and early intervention is key for these children's recoveries and healing.
So there was not early. So how long did it take? So did it take 3.5 years for you to change his diet?
So at 3 years old, I realized he had autism, right? And I went online and, I made doctor's appointments and all that. And online, I read that gluten-free, dairy-free diets and sugar-free diets and all these different diets were helping these children. So immediately I went in my cupboards and threw out pretty much everything. And I went out and bought $500 worth of supplements. I bought all these different vitamins they said these kids need. And I made a doctor's appointment. And I go to the doctor. And by the way, and I also got scheduled for a diagnosis. And this was back in 2012. And it was going to take 9 months in San Diego to be seen to get a diagnosis.
Wow.
So backed up they were 5 years ago. But I go to a
Wow.
regular pediatrician and bring up, to talk to, and he tells me that there's no evidence that diet can help these children, that none of the tests that I want to get, heavy metals tests, are covered, and that the only thing that the American Journal of Pediatrics covers is therapy, and like do ABA therapy, and it's a lifelong disorder. These children just regress, and there's nothing you can do but therapy, and offers me drugs to sedate him. And so I refused that. I said, no, I need B12 shots. I need to do this, and he wasn't willing to help me.
So he wouldn't even, so that doctor wouldn't even prescribe you B12 shots?
No.
Wow.
He also had told me that he had never seen a child with autism before. This was in North Plains, Oregon, out in the middle of nowhere. So I was literally brought him the very first patient with autism he'd ever seen. So he had to go online to the Journal of Pediatrics or Academy of Pediatrics and tell me what they recommended. He didn't even have experience. So I took his advice with a grain of salt,
Yeah.
Well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just verbatim, repeating what somebody else who I don't really agree with all of their advice to begin with. That's why I'm in this situation from their recommendations.
Right, exactly. So when did things begin to turn around? Actually, before you answer that, for those of you who are just joining us, I see there are new people hopping on. I am talking with Lyndsy Karrie, and she has been sharing the story with me of how she has learned of her son, her 3-year-old son at this point's autism diagnosis. And she's just about to get into sharing how they began to have some progress with him at a time when there was very, very little information out there beyond just the status quo. So now you're going to get into, you met with Dr. Green and you began to see some pretty amazing results in a short period of time from working with him, right?
Yes. So when I took things into my own hands when he was 3 and we went gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free right away, within 2 months, his eye contact started to come back. Mm-hmm. And a month later, his emotional response started to return. So at this time, at 3 years old, when he would look at me, when he started to look at me again, he was blank, emotionless. It broke my heart. I was like, where is my boy? He used to smile and giggle, and now he was just gone. And so a month later, he started to smile back at me, emotional response, and it just, it's a moment I'll never forget. And so I knew I was on the right track. Mm-hmm. At this time, though, Camille, I didn't know how to cook, and I was still giving him things like gluten-free waffles and dairy-free snacks, processed foods.
And weren't you working full-time at this point?
I was working full-time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And did you have Kalia by then?
Yes, she was 1.
Okay. And now and you were probably able to really see the difference between I don't want to say normal, but between a child,
a typical, yes. That was one thing that woke me up, seeing my daughter at 1 waving and pointing, and my son at 3 wasn't doing those things.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, my heart sunk, And so it was crazy. So it wasn't until he was 4 that I met Dr. Green. So I was doing it all on my own before then, seeing little success. But at 4, we ran all the tests, which broke my heart to see all these allergies. He said they were leaky gut, and they're not really food allergies at all, which is consistent with what Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride says, which is who created the GAPS protocol, which is what we follow now, which stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome. And she says that she healed her son's autism with this diet and thousands of her patients. And there are incredible before and after videos all over YouTube of children just night and day within 1 year's time on this diet. And I experienced that myself. It wasn't until Dominic was 5 that we put him on the GAPS diet. And so before then, we tried so many different things, Camille, so many different diets, so many different therapies, chelation, this and that, and detoxing, and everything helped. Everything helped a little bit, and some things were negative reactions. You know, it's very, very difficult process. This is very new. It's a new childhood epidemic. So even working with Dr. Green, who has seen over 3,000 children and healed hundreds of them to the point where they're not diagnosable with autism anymore. Wow. Even he understands that every child is different. And so we're all being lumped into this one label where you're talking about some children that are hyperactive and can't sit still. Dominic used to never sit down. He used to run around in circles like a madman, and he would come and grab a bite of food and then go run around. He would never sit down before. So I remember the first time he sat down and just looked around like he was seeing things for the first time after I gave him his first B12 shot. So it's been a really, really intense journey. And then they're grouping those kids with children that are lethargic and grouping, you know, highly intelligent savants with children that are nonverbal and not potty trained, you know. And so it's a really, really interesting label. And I think that's the reason there's so much confusion about what autism is and what it isn't. And I think a lot of vaccine injuries are just getting lumped in, or mercury poisonings. You know, there's so many different things out there that are so similar in symptom to, I think there could be like a real, like some people, I've talked to some parents who have children with autism and they ran all the health tests and they're healthy on board, you know, on paper. And then there's some children with autism that you run the test, like my son, and they have extreme toxic loads of various heavy metals and, you know, and leaky gut, and you heal those things, you address those issues, and the symptoms go away.
That's amazing.
So I think there's a little bit of both.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm hearing, I don't know if you're hearing this or if our listeners are hearing this, but I'm hearing, I'm hearing
some
myself.
Feedback?
Yeah, feedback. Do you have any earbuds? I don't know if that'll help. So for those of you who are just joining us, can somebody tell me, does the sound okay to you guys? Are you hearing feedback from my end? If anyone can tell me. Now I'm not hearing it. Okay, well now I'm not hearing it. Anyway, Lyndsy is sharing the story of healing that she has been that she has been experiencing with her son Dominic, and we are going to moving forward. We're going to talk about some of the specifics of the GAPS diet and some of the different conditions that it helps with. Okay, thank you, Kelly. Okay, so can you, for any of the listeners who may not be clear, can you go through, I know that the GAPS diet, that it's done in several different stages. Can you talk a little bit more about the GAPS diet and how someone would go about doing this for themselves? And then also what conditions, I know that the GAPS diet is excellent for anything to do with the brain, and that there is a very, very close connection between the gut and the brain. So, and as we are learning in the Broken Brain series that's airing right now, that I think that was talked about in the first or second episode, is that that actually when the body is little tiny, when it's just forming, that the basically the gut and the brain cells were one and they split off from one. And so the connection between the connection between the brain and the gut is very, very close. Can you speak to that any more succinctly than I just did?
Yeah, definitely. talk a little bit about the GAPS. So it is a 6-stage diet, and just like any diet, I believe any diet can be done wrong. So I do see a lot of people not follow like this full 6 stages and just jump into the full GAPS, which is a lot easier. But I think a lot of the real healing that occurs is in the first 3 stages, where you go to a complete, a real elimination diet. And what GAPS really addresses is leaky gut, and holes in the gut lining, which is then allowing the foods to seep out from the gut into the bloodstream where it shouldn't be. And then your body is treating these foods as foreign invaders and
having an immune response and attacking itself.
Yes.
Right. So the GAPS diet can be used really, I mean, if you look at your digestion, your ability to assimilate the nutrients in your food properly, if you look at that as like step 1 of health, which how could it not be? Because without food and nutrition and our body's ability to break it down properly, you can have no health. You cannot even continue to live. So the GAPS diet is something that can be used as a foundation for people dealing with any chronic illness, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, according to Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride, it heals everything from autism to bipolar, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, ADHD, apraxia, dyslexia, heart disease. I mean,
wow. And then, of course, all of the digestive issues as well. Do people, like Crohn's?
Eczema, seizures, I mean, like I said, you name it. And then what you have to ask yourself is, well, what GAPS really is eating like our grandparents ate. So many people look at GAPS and they say, oh, that's so complicated. I could never do that because everything's homemade. But that's how we ate 80 years ago. Right? We didn't use microwaves. We didn't drive through McDonald's. We didn't, consume. And then not to mention, but the things we're lathering on, the shampoos, the things we're spraying and breathing in our home. I mean, when you start to look at, GAPS is just one piece of the puzzle, because I didn't just do GAPS. We did Qigong massage, energy healing, tapping, clearing blocks, so much removing chemicals from our household. When I found out my laundry detergent was so toxic and had chemicals linked to birth defects and reproductive harm and cancer. And no wonder my child wasn't wearing a shirt a few years ago. He used to not wear clothes. He used to not like to be touched. He'd cry if I brushed his teeth or his hair. He had no eye contact. He would sit there, Camille, when he was 4 and line up toys, spin wheels for hours. He couldn't participate in parallel play, which is just sitting next to another child. Now he can take turns and play board games. He follows instructions. His school says he's reading above grade level. He can draw. He can play music by ear. He can speak. He has a huge vocabulary. He knows thousands of words. He can answer questions. He asks questions. So I have so much more with him. I mean, he used to not sleep but 3 to 4 hours a night, and one really, really tough thing about this and about healing and why you don't see so many people healing, unfortunately, is because it's so deep, the toxins. I mean, 3 months working with Dr. Green and I was doing all this stuff you could imagine, right? And we did another test and we saw some of his toxins had gone up.
How?
From exposure. I had to get rid of my mattress. The mattresses, since 2009, they made it a law that they all have to be sprayed with cancerous chemicals to make them flame retardant. So literally 8 hours a night, I had to go through my house and see where is he being exposed.
Right.
Where is he being exposed? So oftentimes people try one thing or try this or that, and they don't see a lot of success, but it is deeply integrated, I mean, into society. There's mercury in our light bulbs, fluorescent light bulbs. Now, I talked to a mother who had a broken light bulb, and it gave her daughter autism.
What?
She was the one who referred me to Dr. Green. She said he healed her autism in 4 months, and she referred me to him. Yes,
Wow.
It is insane what is put in our environment, or aluminum cookware,
Right.
which is linked to Alzheimer's. Why are we cooking? Technology, Camille, is being used against us, and we need to go back to basics, you know? I mean, what's in our water? You know, I could look at all these different things that I didn't know about before, Camille, and we don't want to hurt our babies, but it's like you have to change so much in the environment. You have to be very aware
and I think that the thing that is challenging for people, there is definitely for the people who have had these miraculous success stories like you're speaking of with Dominic, and I have some other friends who have some similar stories. They have the same attitude as you do. I'm not willing to go along with the conventional wisdom, if you can call it wisdom. And I will find the answer for my family or for my child, and I won't give up until I find it. There is this pit bull is the thing that is the animal that I see come out that is just like, I am going to figure out what is wrong, and I'm not going to give up until I do. And when you're talking about conditions like this that are so deeply systemic in a person's body, it requires a lot of patience and tenacity, and just like, I'm going to keep going until I get the results that I want. And unfortunately, most people don't have the strength of will. I think I'm just looking from my own experiences to just keep on going. And then when you also have these conventional doctors saying, oh, well, the things you're doing aren't going to help anyway, or you should just do something simpler, that can really deflate people. And that's why I think also, though, that your story, that sharing stories of healing is probably the best thing we can do to inspire others on their path. And to see, even though Dominic is, not all the way to the other side yet, you're committed that he is going to get there. And because you've seen so much progress, and like who I know him to be is not the little boy who you spoke of, who when he was 3 and 4 years old. And I just think it's so important for people to hear more stories, to believe that it's possible, and then just don't give up until they have the result that they want is really key.
Definitely. I mean, I think our beliefs are so beyond powerful, and I think that is a big part of why I find success in my journey, is because I believe that I will. I believe in Dominic. And sure, it would be a million times easier for anybody to say, oh, this is the way it is. This is the way it's intended. And I mean, it'd be a million times easier to go the conventional route. Less expensive, more mainstream, but I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. I think it is in certain ways.
In some ways, it's easier in certain ways because, the kids can keep eating whatever foods they want, but it's not, because in this perspective, this just is how it is. My child is this way. They're always going to be this way. And there may be an ease that comes with feeling like it's just the verdict. And I think that's probably also why, though, some people get so uncomfortable with you saying, I'm healing my son's autism, is because by you saying something else is possible, they have to reconcile for themselves their belief that it's not. And I think that makes some of your haters probably feel a bit uncomfortable. But we won't go any further down that rabbit hole. Kelly has a question. She said, what do you use for water filtration in the house?
We have a reverse osmosis water filter.
And then do you add anything back into it?
Yeah, and then we add trace minerals.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely, what I know about reverse osmosis is that because it pulls everything out, that you always want to add something back in, like even if it is just a little bit of salt, but the trace minerals are really good. Okay, so going back to my first question, what is the GAPS diet specifically? Oh, yeah. Like what does Dominic eat? How do you evolve through the 6 stages?
Sure. It's 6 stages, and in stage 1, you are only to eat soups, only high quality meats, the highest quality meat you can get, pasture raised, grass fed, wild, organic, fresh. It's always best. Boiled. So you make a broth, like a chicken stock or a beef stock. You can use beef bones. You can use fish bones, although, that's a little controversial just because of what's going on with our oceans now. Right. But so it's all broths, high quality meats and vegetables that are boiled in water with a little bit of pink Himalayan salt or sea salt and a little bit of ground black pepper. No other spices at this point are allowed until stage 4. You can do an herb bouquet in the broth and then remove that. And then, so everything's boiled. So then you can eat it pureed together or as like a stew, or you can take the meat and vegetables out and then drink the broth. You kind of got to get creative, right? To have little bit different variety. So it's lots of like meatballs, blending vegetables, and mixing with meat and garlic and then boiling that. It makes it more easily digestible. And then also fermented foods. So you're supposed to start with like a small amount of like fermented veggie juice, not even the fibrous vegetables. Yeah, at this point, just the juice. And you start with, a teaspoon and slowly work your way up to not have too much of a die-off effect. A lot of these children suffer from, yeast overgrowth and candida infections and things like that. So
right. So what
do experience some die-off.
Right. So you said that, you went and had all of these tests done, and, Dominic has leaky gut and he's got all of these toxins in his body. And then you introduce this very simple, very healing diet, and he probably started to feel worse before he felt better. How long did that last for, the diet?
Yeah. And it's so hard to even start with a lot of these children. Like with Dominic, I filmed a lot of it, and I have a 10-minute video on YouTube.
Oh, cool. Can you put that link in the comments after the interview?
Yeah, I'll post a link. And because I believed, I read all these books and saw all these videos online of before and after, and so I believed I was going to heal my child with this diet. It all made sense to me, and I saw how he was addicted to the foods that were feeding the yeast. And so he was throwing meltdowns when I would just serve him a plate of chicken or broccoli. He'd start hitting himself in the face, screaming. So I filmed it because I said, I want to show people. It's so easy. There's all these people, Jenny McCarthy there's all these people out there saying I healed my kid, but then everybody's saying, oh, well, they didn't have autism to begin with. It must have been misdiagnosed, or, it's just people write it off. So I was like, seeing is believing for a lot of people. And I want to show the world what can happen. I want to inspire other people. And I believed it happened. So I filmed him having meltdowns and all that. And so it's very difficult. A lot of parents don't even start because they just don't see the way. It's just so those first few days can be kind of traumatizing.
For children in general, I have a 2-year-old who eats pretty clean. He mostly likes to eat meat and fruit. That's all, and breast milk. That's what he gravitates towards. But I put a plate of like chicken and sweet potato stew on his plate for dinner last night, and he wasn't into it at all. and he asked for the other things that he likes. We're really trying to get him eating the things that we're eating at dinner. And oh yeah, he wouldn't eat it. He had a meltdown, and children just want what they want. So
right.
what would you say to a parent who is early in removing the harmful foods from their kids' diet? What would you say to them to inspire them?
Just beliefs are powerful. I hear, like, because I do coach a lot of parents through this process, and I will hear right off the bat the language they're using. My child won't eat that. My child will never do that. They are determining, they've already decided that's not capable. Well, you know what? My child and every other child who I've been coaching was like that too. And now they're not. Now my child, you see him, he loves avocados and coconut kefir and takes spoonfuls of coconut oil.
He eats raw egg yolks with a spoon out of a bowl. It's amazing. He loves them. He chugs fish oil.
Yeah, he asks for spirulina and probiotics and enzymes, and he loves
Well, and he's adapted. What you've said is that Dominic definitely has, I think that we all have our inner wisdom of what is good for us, but you've commented to me before, and I have seen it just from knowing Dominic, is what you said is like, he knows what's good for him and he loves the things that are good for him. And that is so powerful. How old is he now? 8?
He's 8. And, I'll tell you, the first time I gave him fermented cod liver oil when he was 4, when we were starting to dabble with GAPS, he spit it out on me the first 2 times. And the third time I squirted it in his mouth, he asked for more.
Yeah.
So many people will give up after that, those messy fish spills,
Right.
You don't want to have cod liver oil on you. Trust me, you're all over.
Especially the fermented variety. That one is especially yucky.
But, I think for anything, trying something new is scary. And especially for these kids on the spectrum, they love routine. So the first time you give them something new, they're not going to want it. It's inconsistency. Put it on their plate every day. Believe in them. Don't believe it's the end of the world and they'll never do that. Just think. You got to think differently. I haven't figured out a way yet. I'm going to keep trying until I figure out a way. Maybe I have to, make Mickey Mouse pancakes that I, blend with squash and eggs. Like in the beginning, my son was so picky that I had to blend cauliflower with eggs and then scramble it like it was eggs because he liked eggs. Like I had to get really creative into how I could get a vegetable into my child. And, so you just got to keep trying. Sometimes it helps getting another perspective, but just don't lose faith. Don't lose hope. Don't give up. That's the only way you lose, when you just give up.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I don't know if you answered this and I missed it, but how long did you see him having the detox reactions at the beginning? Was it a matter of days or weeks?
Well, when he was 4 and we jumped into the GAPS and Candida diet, I merged the two. It was about 2 to 3 weeks, but he broke out all over his body. He had his shoulders were bleeding. He had acne on his butt, acne all over his chest. His stomach used to bulge out, looked really unhealthy. All that's gone now. We struggled with constipation and diarrhea though for years. That was the hardest to get under control. Now he has perfect digestion.
And when was the last time you had a follow-up or had new tests run, or what? Do you have
last year, and we're about to do some more again this year. So we're still testing regularly.
And so, so you told us about step 1 of GAPS. And so as you go through the steps, you just get a little bit, you add in a little bit more and a little bit more food. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, so you're supposed to keep increasing the fermented vegetable juices in stage 1. Dairy is optional if tolerated. I should say fermented dairy,
right.
Fermented
like
raw.
kefir.
Yeah.
Okay.
in small amounts. So you're supposed to keep upping that, but a lot of the children can't even tolerate the dairy at that
Yeah.
point. So then in stage 2, you add in raw egg yolks and then avocado. And so if you ever go to add in a new food and your child has a negative reaction, you're supposed to go back to the previous stage for another week and then try again. So the idea is that the gut has not sealed yet, and that allergies are not really food allergies, but leaky gut. And now I can tell you my son can eat all the things that it used to say he was allergic to and that he used to be intolerant to and have immediate reactions to. Now he can eat all those things without reaction.
Yeah,
I still have to be careful, but.
Yeah, I used to, back when I was diagnosed with leaky gut, when I was 23 years old, I was given a food allergy test. I don't know how widely those food allergy tests are still offered. I'm not hearing a lot of functional medicine doctors still doing food allergy tests because they seem to recognize, I don't recommend them anymore. They seem to recognize that a food allergy is what, as you're saying, is a symptom as opposed to the cause. So you may take out those foods for a time, but really the focus is on healing the gut so that you are able to eat a broader range of foods. Now, but that doesn't mean, like Dominic still doesn't eat a lot of things, right? He eats largely like a very low fruit, more like paleo type diet with a lot of bone broth and fermented foods, right?
Yeah, so we try to keep his diet filled with the foods from stages 1 through 3. But in the past, Camille, because it's intended as a 2-year diet. And then you're never supposed to really go back to a standard American diet filled with processed foods and chemicals. But, you're supposed to be able to add in things that aren't GAPS approved, like sweet potatoes and carbs and, maybe soaked beans and lentils, properly prepared, organic. You should never be consuming the pesticides and the chemicals because according to Dr. Green, that's why we have leaky gut. But you, yes, should be able to add in different things. And so at 2 years on the diet, Dominic was doing so incredible that I was like, oh, okay, we can come off it. So I started introducing beans or, you see all this progress and you get excited and you want him to have different things. And now that he'll eat anything I offer him is incredible. From a child who used to be afraid of foods. So you want to give him different things. But I've noticed when I do that, when I stray from GAPS, some of the symptoms come back. And I've done other interviews with adults who have healed from autism with GAPS. And they say they fully healed all the symptoms. And then if they go off the diet or drink whiskey even at a party, their autism symptoms will come back.
Wow.
And it's what I see in Dominic too. So we have to stay on GAPS. And yeah, if he went to camp last year for a week overnight, it was huge. I never knew if he could do that before.
Didn't he have a slew of bananas or something at camp?
Yes. Yeah. And so because he was only to eat what I packed for him, right? So I packed him everything. And because I had sent him with 1 or 2 apple bananas for the week, they thought apple bananas were okay for him to eat. So he ended up having like 20, right?
Oh, he must have been in heaven.
He was. And when he came home.
Yeah, what are the things you experience when he strays too far?
So when he came home, he'll lose his patience. Like he'll get less patient. When he's on the diet, he has so much patience. But he'll lose his patience. He'll start responding in sound like instead of words. So I have to prompt him more. He won't lose skills like he used to. He'll just have some old symptoms arise again. And it's very short-lived though. He'll get maybe a little more hyperactive. And just a little bit less focused even, if he's doing great nutritionally wise and like sticking to the GAPS, we'll have full back and forth dialogues throughout the day. And if, he'll go have a bunch of bananas or something like that, he can get to the kind of like a brain fog will come back. But the thing is, it'll only last like 1 to 2 days now. So now his body's working so efficiently that when he came back from camp, he was just off for like 2 days, and then he was back to normal. So his body is digesting now and working efficiently. He's fit. He looks healthy. His skin is clear. You know, it knows what to do now.
And you'll see when you watch the video that she posts. Do you have any recent pictures of Dominic or anything?
I do, and I'm gonna do a new video soon since that video is like 2 years old, and he's doing so much more now.
You look at him, and I mean, his eyes are very clear. His body is like strong but lean. I mean, he looks like he's got very clear skin. He looks like a very, very healthy boy.
Yeah,
and it's amazing.
He eats healthy. I mean, you are what you eat.
And what's so amazing is that I just wish that you could take your video to every doctor who's ever said that food doesn't matter and just show them. Just show them. Really? Food doesn't have anything to do with this? Anyway, Kelly has a question.
They're not trained in nutrition.
No, they're not. Kelly asks, what about nuts?
So nuts
says her son has a bee allergy.
Nuts are allowed, I want to say, on stage 3, I believe. You can start adding in, but
you have to soak them first.
Yeah,
soak and sprout. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they have some toxins in them, right? So you want to soak it,
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pitates, yeah. So yeah, and then even those, you know, a lot of nuts can often have mold, or I mean, there's a lot of controversy around them.
Some better than others. Definitely no peanuts. Well, peanuts are actually peanuts are not a nut; they're a legume. But some nuts that are easier, I know, like soaked almonds, are typically easier for most to digest than some of the other ones.
And so at stage 3, you can start adding in like some soaked nuts and soaked nut butters, and you're supposed to make like a pancake with eggs and squash and homemade almond butter. And so she provides some recipes, and then let's see, after that you can start adding in a couple raw juices like cucumber and soft leaf lettuce, and then baked apple comes after that. And then
baked apple at that point must feel like heaven.
Yes. Oh, and you can have a little bit of raw honey in the introduction stage too.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, if you need, you know, to kind of with your blood sugar and all that, you know.
Right.
But obviously not overdo it. It's easy, you know.
It's so easy with anything sweet to overdo it. And for a young child, it's like you taste like when Dominic comes over to our house, last time we had to hide the bananas because, you know, kids love everyone loves things that are sweet. And so it's really easy it is a slippery slope, as we have discussed. So for those of you who may just be joining us, we're actually just about to wrap up, but my guest is Lyndsy Karrie, and she has been sharing her amazing story of how she is currently healing her son's autism symptoms. And using a GAPS diet. She has been talking about the different stages of the GAPS diet. The GAPS diet book by Dr. Natasha McBride, you can find anywhere. We can put the link to that below. But if you are just joining us and you have any specific questions that you would like to ask Lyndsy, if you just want to say hello and tell us where you're joining us from, we would love to hear. So Lyndsy, can you tell us what you're up to and how, if anyone has a child who's dealing with anything like this or knows a child, how could a mom work with you to support her child through this journey?
Sure. I have a free group on Facebook called Leaving the Spectrum. So anybody can join that, Leaving the Spectrum. It has over 2,400 parents and caregivers and people who've healed their own autism themselves in that group, doctors, you know, just tons and tons of parents, some just starting out and some many who've already fully healed. So tons of support, tons of free information. If people need additional support, I offer one-on-one coaching. I also have a 6-week GAPS course with meal plans and shopping lists and video recipes, teaching people, just how easy it is to make the bone broths and the fermented foods. A lot of people think it's, really complicated, but really making broth
it's not
like
hard. It's just
no.
It's just specific. You just
Yes.
really need to do the things in the order in which you're asked to do them, more than it being difficult.
And since it took me so many years to really figure that out, I love to just help catch people up to speed on that and just kind of demystify it and show them and just, answer their questions. So yeah, Leaving the Spectrum is my group. Join that. I have realyummyfood.com where I share recipes, and I have a free 3-day meal plan. And Real Yummy Food is really just helping people just get back to eating real food, not even GAPS, just removing the chemicals and the GMOs and the harmful additives. Just, showing people how to make things naturally and easily. So yeah, that's what I'm working on, just group coaching, one-on-one coaching. I am still working on filming a documentary of Dominic's healing, and I just want to wait till he's further along, till he can, till we're just a little bit further along. I believe he'll be, fully healed from this in the next, couple years. So to the point where he can really share his experience in his own words about what he's gone through, because all I can do is share what I've seen him do, and it's incredible, but I can't wait for him to share more. So I have 200 gigs of Dominic's journey over the last 5 years, and in the next couple of years I hope to put it all together and just show people what is possible, and
he'll probably want to help you put it together. He's pretty good at all that stuff.
He loves video editing and filming. Yes, that's true.
Kelly has another question. She says, how about apple cider vinegar? Is there a place for that?
Yeah, it's very, very healing. It's another fermented food. Most fermented foods are very, very healing, and it makes perfect sense because before refrigerators, it's how we kept foods good. We put them under salt water and they stay fresh forever, right? From the beneficial bacteria. And so I give Dominic apple cider vinegar baths, and I cook with it a lot. It's not something he really likes raw, so I try to just put it in the bath, and through skin is one of the best ways to, get more minerals and nutrients in.
Yeah, I don't use a lot of apple cider vinegar. We have it in the house, and I don't always, I make salad dressing with it. I don't use it for a whole lot else. We've got a couple more comments here. Susan,
I used to take shots of it, but
yeah. It's harder than driving through a drive-through for fast food. We have to get back pre-fast food way of eating. That is so true, Susan. It's this idea that food should come to us. The idea that food should just come handed to us in a bag through a window while driving through our car is definitely one of the dark sides of our evolution, for sure.
People don't even know where their food is coming from.
No.
These days.
And what I love so much about your story is just there is no denying the power of food when you see it used in such a therapeutic way with such a dramatic case of imbalance and illness. To see, I have been doing this thing for so many years, and every time we have this conversation, I am reminded at how powerful food is. And I think that sometimes we want to forget because we want to just eat the things we want to eat. But when you hear stories like this, you can't forget it. I can't forget how powerful the right food given at the right time and the right quantities and all of that really is. It's really powerful. Kelly said that it is great. She would love to see your documentary. I think we would all love to see your documentary.
Thank
Very
you.
amazing. Yeah, I'm super excited for it. So we are at an hour now. We are well past our time. Is there anything else you wanted to share or say before we sign off today?
Just thanks everybody for watching and being so supportive. Thank you, Camille, for giving me a platform to share my story. I'm just going to keep sharing it and just keep hoping that it can inspire people and keep doing everything I can to help us get back to eating real food, you know, and not fake food. And I just think so many issues. I see the world on by food now, and it's trippy. And I just think these, not just the food, but the pesticides and the heavy metals and the medications and the things we're injecting, like just health. It's scary, the state that the world and some people and some families are in right now. And the worst part about it is they don't even know why. And it's not their fault. I mean, it's the marketing and the lies,
the disinformation.
Yes, and everything is kind of like backwards. Like, you know, like you have to now buy organic corn to get corn, but the thing that's labeled corn is a genetically modified organism that could never be created in nature, filled with glyphosate and pesticides and all these things. Like, so things are just very backwards, and I just want people to understand, like, it's not their fault. There are answers, you know, keep searching. And there's hope. And at the end of the day, I think it's just common sense. And unfortunately, it's going to take more people being affected to wake up. But I think more people are waking up. I see that. The products available now are worlds different than 5 years ago when I started on this journey. There's so much hope.
There's a much broader recognition. There's a much broader recognition of the issue of vaccines. And, you know, vaccines are not the only issue. All of the environmental toxins, everything that we've spoken of today, all of it matters. And the toxic load that our children bear, you know, from the time that they're born, just coming through us having lived 20 or 30, however many years before we get pregnant with them, the toxic loads on our bodies that we then pass down to babies unknowingly before they're even born it's tragic. It really, really is. And healing is so important.
And I just want to say, it's all perspective too. You know, now I can say, looking back on this, I'm grateful for the experience and the knowledge. And now, and you know, it's a blessing to
and being able to take the thing that was your biggest heartbreak, and like, I can't even imagine how it was for you as a young mom, recognizing that her son had developed autism after a decision that you know, after vaccines, when you had, you know, you just thought you were doing the thing that you were supposed to be doing. I can't imagine, but the way that you have turned that to help others is, I mean, that's the hero's journey, really.
And I think we can all do that. I think we all go through different journeys, similar in many ways and all different in others, but we can all use our own like struggles, if we overcome them, to help others. And that's just a beautiful thing.
Yes, absolutely. So one last question, then we really are going. Kelly asks, what company do you use for organic clothing for your son?
Different ones. There's, you know, a lot of hemp-based clothing out here in Maui. We're really, really lucky to be in such a natural place. There's like, when I first came out here and just seeing the organic options for everything, there's no specific company that like I really stick with. Much more so, I just we use like our own homemade laundry detergent. Make sure there's no chemicals.
Yeah, I don't buy I don't personally buy organic clothing. I know that would be like a much better thing to do, but I actually try to get most of Orion's clothes used because one of the reasons is just because they've already been washed so many times that that gets out some of the junk, and then just washing them in good quality laundry detergents. And given an unlimited budget, I'm sure that I would buy all of those things. But yeah, anyway, that's how we do it. Oh, and cars. I don't think I'll ever buy a new car again, because the stuff that Lynsy's like, I want a new car. No, but the stuff, new car smell that people like, ooh, new car smell. New car smell is gross. New car smell is toxins. I was trying to dissuade somebody from buying a new car just last week who is like into natural health. I'm like, no, buy a certified pre-owned car. Let somebody else breathe in the toxins for 3 years.
Yeah, we don't have, all organic clothing as well. In a perfect world, we do the best we can,
Yeah.
And but yeah, used is better because it's not like fresh toxins, like you said. It gets washed out over time. But yeah, it's sad that a lot of the clothes are made with GMO cotton with pesticides sprayed on the cotton, and then we're wearing it on our skin.
Cotton is a heavily sprayed crop, a very heavily sprayed crop.
We are being exposed from all angles. You just do the best you can.
Yep. Oh yeah, Kelly says same with new houses. Totally. I don't ever want a new house unless it's a house that I built with all of my own materials. Ugh, the smells. Anyway, we really do have to go. We could actually stay on this forever. But Lyndsy, thank you so much for coming on today. I love hearing your story again. And it sounds like we had a lot of people on who agree. So all of the links again are in the comments. If you want to subscribe, you can get, there's a little subscribe to my interview series, and that will just give you a ding in your inbox letting you know that I'm going live. Many of you probably got it today. I do interviews on Thursdays, and I do recipes on Tuesdays. I know I wasn't on this Tuesday, but I will be back to that next week. I have some really awesome guests coming up. We're going to be talking about the importance of stress reduction. We're going to be talking about losing weight after menopause and just losing weight in general when your hormones don't seem to want to work with you. What else do I have coming up? Oh, I am going to be joined sometime soon by Dr. Kellyanne Petrucci, who is the bone broth queen. She's got bone broth diet, bone broth detox, belly slim down, and she uses bone broth as the center for healing protocols, which Lyndsy and I are both big fans of. So definitely subscribe to this interview series in the link below. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.